Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. I'm coming at you today with some Sky Striker gameplay. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you that I am not the most experienced Sky Striker player at all, but I definitely want to try out the new support. So I'll show you some gameplay with that as well as my build here at the end. This first duel is actually pretty funny. So I won the coin flip, chose to go second, and you'll notice my opponent didn't play anything and then fired off a Perulia. That alone made me think my opponent was probably on Tenpai, and sure enough, that is actually what they're going to be playing here. So, two going second decks paired against each other, and in this case, you actually do really want to win the coin flip. We're going to lead with the Hornet drones here, making a token, and then I'm going to go into Hayate. Because they were still getting past priority once I summoned the Hayate, I decided to just go straight to battle and see what was up. Sure enough, it ended up being another Imperm. Another thing I was thinking was, if this wasn't Tenpai, or even if it was, either way, they're probably going to have a ton of hand traps here. So I mostly went into Hayate in order to basically see if they had a negate in order to bait that out. Sure enough, they did. I'll still attack and deal some damage here, and then I'm going to go linkage into 0. Now, I did misplay here. I activated the 0 effect, and of course, as soon as I added the engage, I realized, oh yeah, I can only use one of these effects per turn. If I hadn't added engage here, I think I would have actually been able to lethal, right? Because 0 would have attacked for 2,000 damage, putting them down to 4,500. I then could have used the second effect, summoning Ray and Rose. Those would have battled for a total of 3,000, which would have put them down to 1,500, and then I could have Ray tagged into another Sky Striker ace for exact lethal. So I did miss that here, because I forgot you could only use each of these effects once per turn. So I just added the engage all happily and then missed lethal, but we're still pretty much in control of this duel here. I'm going to use the call by on my opponent's Joel, because of course I want to use engage as follow-up, and this will put another spell in the graveyard that'll actually make my third one. Swing in for 2k, main phase 2, I'm going to go for the engage here and set up the multi-roll. Multi-roll is a lot of what lets you, keep cycling your cards, right, and setting them over and over again. This Shark Cannon was really unnecessary. I'm just going to end up setting it with the multi-roll again, but I thought I'd be able to go into Zeke, but again, not reading, I forgot that the Ace 0 cannot be used as link material, so yeah, I mean, this duel kind of just, honestly, this isn't the only game either. These duels really do just kind of highlight that I really do need more practice with Sky Striker, but I still wanted to show off some of the gameplay here and just kind of give an idea of how the deck plays. Here I set the Black Goat Laughs off of Thrust. It's the only trap card I play for this exact purpose, to set it off of Thrust when my opponent doesn't have anything up. And I'm going to flip it and call Shundra, being really cute here. I really should have just used the what do you call it? The Widow Anchor on the Hydra. That would have been smartest. But like I said, I just wanted to be cute and style on him a little bit. So I decided to flip up Black Goat Laughs here. But yeah, no, so it's definitely very important when you're playing a control deck like Sky Striker to really know the ins and outs of it, right? Control decks really want you to know exactly how the deck is played a lot more than combo decks. You think about like decks like Branded and Lab, which I would both classify as control decks, and it's all about that resource loop, right, and doing it most effectively. But yeah, I wanted to show off this first duel here. It was kind of funny, and even if I did make a misplay that caused me to miss lethal, I was still able to point it out and explain it to you all. So anyway, let's go ahead and check out the next game here. All right, this duel is going to be up against Tearlaments. It's a kind of a 60-card deck. Well, not kind of, it is a 60-card deck. It's kind of a pile, but it's mostly just playing a bunch of stuff that really wants to get milled in general, right? Alright, so they're going to be taking the first turn here, as always, leading with the Pressured Planet Raitsoth. Now, we didn't open any hand traps, because we actually played very few hand traps, just Maxi, Fua, and Ash Blossom. But we still have a lot of tools here that'll absolutely help us dismantle our opponent's board. We're going to banish the Soliac, going for the Tier Cache here, and thankfully they didn't mill anything too bad. There is a Black Goat Laughs in here, though, so we're going to have to watch out for that. Yeah, here's Lightsworn Dragonling. It's not like full-fledged Lightsworn tier limit, but they're playing a little bit of a Lightsworn package, because again, they just want to play stuff that wants to get milled from deck to graveyard. They're going to go for SP Little Knight, they get to add Punishment, which doesn't really mean anything, and then they're going to pass back over to me. So the things that we have to think about when going into our turn are the Black Goat Laughs, SP Banish, and Fenrir Banish. Draw for turn, we find the multi-roll, which I really like having at the start. I can establish that right away. Then I'm going to go for engage here in order to add Widow Anchor. Now, you might think, well, wouldn't you want to save engage for when you have 3 spells in the graveyard? And ideally, yes. However, I really wanted the Widow Anchor just to have some amount of insurance if I really needed to negate one of these effects. And on top of that, I'm going to have access to engage later, whether it's this copy in my graveyard or another copy I add off of 0 from deck to hand. I'll still get the ability to engage to search and draw at some point during this turn. We're going to go Hornet Drones for the token, and my opponent's going to Blackout Laugh's Call Kagari. So that's kind of what I expected them to do, and I really just wanted to get this Blackout Laughs out of the way. After that, I'm going to use the multi-roll to get rid of the token. That way it's not clogging up my main monster zone, and then I can go straight into Ray Tribute in order to go for 0. That way, now when 0 is summoned and activating its effect, I don't have anything in my main monster zone. If I hadn't have activated multi-roll's effect, you know, that token would still be here. This is very basic Sky Striker stuff, but this is something you have to think about, right? If you're like me and you don't play Sky Striker as much as a lot of other decks, you know, Sky Striker plays very uniquely, so you have to keep all these various factors in mind. Now here they're going to use Fenrir to try to get rid of my multi-roll, but we're going to use the Widow Anchor on the Fenrir in order to negate. We only have 2 spells in the yard at this point, so we don't get to take control, but as you can see, my opponent's going to concede right away. And I think the reason that they did that is because they knew that without the ability to remove my multi-roll and take away my grind game, they were always going to inevitably snowball into a loss, right? My opponent's opening hand wasn't super explosive, and their minimal amount of interactions are definitely not able to keep up with my grind game that I have here. So not only would 0 have resolved, but we still had the Triple Tactics talent in hand, and we also had access to linkage. Linkage can actually be very important with 0. Since 0 can't be used as link material, you can simply use linkage to send it to the graveyard and use that in order to go into another Sky Striker Ace monster. Okay, so there's that duel. Let me go ahead and show you the next one here. Okay, here's a game against Millennium Fiendsmith Orcust. I really tried to get some more back and forth games, especially with how controlly of a deck Sky Striker is. But like our last opponent, a lot of people really just kind of tend to concede once they realize that you've got the Sky Striker engine, you know, up and running. Now here, this is going to be a little bit more about hand trap and disruption usage. So you'll notice that I first activated Ash Blossom before the Max C against the Sengen Gen. While of course Max C is more powerful, and looking at my hand, I really would like some amount of plays here. So the draws are important. However, my thought process here is that my opponent likely has more plays in hand, and I can use the Ash Blossom to test for something like Call By or Cross Out, or maybe even a Triple Tactics talent, and then I can see if the coast is clear to Max C later in the turn. Yeah, when you're playing a going second deck and or a control deck, a lot of what's really going to be important is how you use your disruptions, right? And recognizing the best timing to use them, which can come down to your in-archetype disruptions or your hand traps. Now they're going to set up the Fiendsmith engine here. We're going to wait until Lurie activates in order to activate the Max C. That way we're getting a guaranteed draw. I'd really like to find some out of my Sky Striker engine, which is why I really value getting the draw here. Now, another thing to note about hand trap usage. I drew Fuelos, and my opponent set a card and then passed. You'll note that I did not immediately fire off Fuelos. While it is true that if my opponent chose to link into Requiem, I would miss out on a draw from the Fuelos, I could then simply chain Fuelos when they activate Requiem's effect. Otherwise, if I had simply thrown out the Fuelos, I would have gotten 0 draws as my opponent intended to pass the turn anyway. This is another thing that you really have to think about when you're dealing with hand traps, right? Or disruption in general is, you know, opportunity versus, like the opportunity to draw more cards versus the trying to get guaranteed draws that might lead you to 0, especially in a situation like here where we're trying to find engine. Now, thankfully, we did manage to peel engage off the top of our deck. And as I mentioned before, as soon as we dropped it, our opponent conceded. This happened a lot when I was trying to playtest this deck, which was really not ideal for me, especially as somebody who's trying to learn how to play Sky Striker better. So I think what I might end up having to do at some point is just getting some friends and being like, hey, do you want to sit down and play Sky Striker games? Or let me test Sky Striker because I don't know it very well. But anyway, I have at least one other game for us to end off with here. Well, I say end off with. We're going to show the deck list, of course, and then we'll finish the video. But this last game here is going to be up against Fiendsmith Dragonmaid. As always, we are going second. And this hand looks really solid. We got Fua and Ash Blossom, as well as Ray, Desires, and Black Goat. So they're going to lead with the Engraver here, going for the Tract. Note that I'm not using my Ash Blossom on the Engraver or the Tract, because I can simply use it against the Requiem later if I need to. Although, to be fair, I might have wanted to use it earlier just to test to make sure the Fua resolved, but with this hand, I already have enough, like, plays that I don't super value the Fua draws as much as I did in that last hand. So, I'm going to use Ash Blossom here against the Chamber Dragonmaid and try to stop them from getting those plays set up. They're going to link off into SP Little Knight. And then also use the Dragon form of Chamber in order to special summon her back. So we found an Engage off that one draw. Very good for us. Droplet also very good here. I'm going to go with Desires to draw 2. And then I'm actually going to use Droplet here more than anything else, really just to set up another spell card in the graveyard. Normally, I wouldn't always go out of my way to set up 3 spell cards like this, but it's beneficial for me to do it this way for 2 reasons. One, I can force the Little Knight effect while I don't have anything on the field for them to banish out. And 2, I have not just 1 but 2 copies of Engage in my hand, meaning that it's doubly beneficial for me to get those spells in the graveyard. Okay, they're going to use Dragonmaid downtime here, which lets them bounce the Chamber back to their hand and then add the Airness, which is the Nurse Dragon form. They can use that in order to special summon Chamber at some point during my turn here. So I was a little bit wary about my ability to actually try to OTK them, but at the same time, I wanted to force them to use the Airness sooner rather than later. So we're going to use Engage in order to go for Widow Anchor and then draw, and then of course, or multi-roll first, then draw, then Widow Anchor, then draw. Of course, I drew a Widow Anchor off the second one here. 0 can add back the Engage. I'm going to Engage for Linkage. At this point, I was starting to think that maybe I would actually be able to find lethal here, so at this point, I was like, why not? I'm just going to activate all my spells and see how much damage I can get. And worst case scenario, whatever, I can just set everything off the multi-roll anyway. What I failed to remember was that Linkage does lock you. Yes, Linkage locks you into Sky Striker extra deck summons for the rest of the turn. So, again, me just failing to read / remember all the intricacies of Sky Striker cards. Not able to go into Dark and then access code like I was hoping to. But at the same time, it's kind of one of those situations where even if I did kind of screw up and, you know, now I can't OTK, it's really not that big of a deal because I'm still just in full control of this duel. Which is really, at the end of the day, what Sky Striker is all about. Like, it is a control deck. It can OTK, of course, and it's not a bad idea to go for OTKs when possible, but more often than not, you're really just looking to get your opponent in a situation like this, right? Where they have, like, maybe 1 or 2 cards between their hand and field. You've got your multi-roll up, which is recycling your cards from the graveyard. You know, having multiple disruptions of, like, Widow Anchor, and we have the new Lemon's Gate as well. We also have the new Link one, the Amatsu, which can act as a disruption during your opponent's turn. Alright, they're going to start doing some more Fiendsmith stuff here. Going for the Requiem. Requiem for another Lacrima, right? That's the second one? It is, yeah. I'm a little surprised to see multiple Lacrima, especially in a Dragonmaid deck, but I mean, it's not horrible or anything, it's just you don't really ever see people on more than 1 Lacrima that often. So here I'm going to use the Lemon's Gate to recycle, or Lemnis Gate, not Lemon's Gate. The Lemnis Gate to recycle a bunch of my Link monsters and spells while bouncing their Fiendsmith board, so they can't link it off. They can still fuse for Fiendsmith's Lacrima, but this is where the new Link one, Amatsu, comes into play. It's basically a negate. I changed Lacrima's effect into destroying one of my Sky Striker monsters, which will then allow the Ray to come back, and then I can also use the Lemnis Gate in order to link the Ray into Kaina. Of course, I could have also just used Ray's effect, but now if they destroy my Kaina, I can bring... No, I can't bring back Ray, because that's once per turn. So I definitely should have just used Raise Effect there. Okay. Either way, it didn't really matter. I'm just going to concede after that as I've secured full control of this. But, alright, there is some gameplay. Let me show you now the deck list. Okay, so here is my Sky Striker deck list. It's a little bit budget in a couple of ways. For one, I don't own Upstart Goblins. Otherwise, I think I would definitely try to make room for them over, like, Desires for sure. And potentially some other cards here. And I'm on 2 copies of Ace Zero as well as 1 copy of the Lemnis Gate. Now, that's technically the bare minimum of what you need in order to play this deck, but ideally, I would have at least a 2nd copy of the Lemnis Gate. Because when you get into really grindy games, you can use Lemnis Gate in order to put back another copy of itself, and that will allow you to continuously, throughout a very grindy duel, recycle your Sky Striker Link monsters and spells, which is very, very important for this deck. So, now, to be fair, 95% of your games won't go to that, like, you know, length, but it's still really important to have, I think, if you're going to be maining Sky Striker. I'm not. Sky Striker's a deck I play like once in a blue moon, so that's why I'm not fully committing. But in an optimized build, I think you would have a 2nd Lemnis Gate. But you could definitely get away with just 1. Like I said, also, you would ideally have a 3rd copy of Zero Day over like Typhon is not something that comes up a lot by any means, but this card is insane, and having access to it at any point during the duel is very important. So I think having 3 copies of these, if you're a dedicated Sky Striker main, is very important as well. Yeah, we're on the 3 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. Of course, we have some very powerful normal spells to search out, like the Engage here. Just the 1 copy of Multi-Roll, and you'll notice that we're not playing a lot of the other Sky Striker spells that you might expect to see. You know, stuff like maybe Afterburners or Jamming Waves. Those cards are not bad by any means. I just think the other Sky Striker spells are better, right? Hornet Drones is at 3, which it's not, I don't think, in any other format still. So definitely taking advantage of that. You know, Widow Anchor, Negate, and Steal is insane. I love the linkage. Again, that's really important to have to get the 0 off the field and still be able to go into, you know, even more of your Sky Striker monsters, even if you cannot use this as link material. Now, I do like having just a random trap card to be able to set off the Triple Tactics Thrust. I started with Black Goat Laughs, but honestly, in this particular meta where Lunalight is not only just good, but really popular, you could also definitely think about the, here it is, the Karma Cannon as well. Because Karma Cannon is a card that forces your opponent to remove their monsters, which gets around to the unaffected effects. Not only that, well, it turns them face down, but not only that, it will also affect both Liger Dancers as opposed to just 1. So this can be a solid way of getting them out of the way, or at least turning them face down. But yeah, the Lunalight Liger Dancer, while it is a little bit scary, at the end of the day, is still not, like, I don't know, it's not something that I am feel the most threatened by, because not only does it only come up in the Lunalight matchup, but that's only if they manage to get their combo off. Now, granted, we're not playing a ton of hand traps to disrupt them, but we do have like Maxi and Fua to kind of dissuade them from continuing their combo line. I think against most decks, Black Goat Laughs just tends to be better, but I would not fault you for wanting to play Karma Cannon or something that can out the Liger Dancers as well. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it. I think the rest of the build here is pretty self-explanatory. We've got the talents, and I like having Raigeki. I was originally playing 2 talents, but I think having a board wipe is pretty important. And Lightning Storm is like fine, but I like how Raigeki doesn't have a condition behind it. You can just drop it and wipe all of your opponent's monsters. Typically the spell trap cards you don't care about as much. You can just grind through those. So having that option for Lightning Storm I don't think is quite as important. But, oh, and the droplets. Love the droplets, of course. Fantastic for this deck. Not only does it set up spell cards in the graveyard, but also just being able to be another board breaker. But yeah, anyway, I think that's pretty much everything I had to say about Sky Striker for now. So thanks as always for watching. Super appreciate you. Why don't we go ahead and move now to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.